Hey everybody, welcome to a conversation on Second Kings. We're on week 4, Second Kings 4. That's are we just we're doing
Chapter
a
week.
chapter a week? Is that the plan?
I think we'll combine a few, but I really wanted to separate this and five because I really like the story of Naaman and the servant girl.
Hey,
So I
that's
thought
next
for
week.
that.
We
I
can't talk
know,
about that.
but people can read ahead. So I'm not. I'm not
No.
telling them what happened.
Actually,
Oh shoot! Sorry, we have the whole book. We keep it in lockdown.
yep. I think that's what the priest used to
I was
do.
going to say, isn't that what used to happen, and it wasn't such a good thing?
So the question is, when do you feel seen?
When do you feel seen?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I usually don't like to be seen.
Don't see
Don't
me.
see me.
I'm seen when nobody sees me.
I think it's much more like there's more of maybe a feeling when you feel unseen, but is there a feeling or a response, or do you recognize when you are seen?
Um, I don't know. I don't know if it's related. I was thinking of moments in life that force you to like actually be in the moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily related,
Yeah.
but I feel like there are things. Maybe it's a cousin to the question, but like, what are the moments where you aren't preoccupied by what has been or what will be, but you're
Yeah.
actually in the moment? And I think when you're like hanging out with somebody, you can tell when they're preoccupied with something else.
What'd you say?
When you're in a meeting,
That was a good one. That was so quick, you didn't even know.
or because you've been gone, I've led a couple meetings, and I find myself being distracted by people who are distracted.
Yeah.
It's like a spiral, and so I don't know if that is necessarily the same thing.
I do think part of being seen is presence, for sure. I think that sometimes things that do have value, like empathy or solidarity, or things that kind of can be, I think they can be attempted from a distance. They're very different when you sit with somebody or are present with somebody.
Or another like related thing is the both with some of the college students and even with some of the younger baristas, they're seem to be preoccupied or consumed by how they're perceived by others. I feel like I've told so many people nobody's paying attention to you. Like
Right.
that's like a good thing. Like
Including me.
well, like
right now.
yeah, like I don't do that because I'm insecure about it. I'm like everybody's preoccupied with their own stuff.
Yeah.
Like most people
Mhm.
are spend 90% of their own attention on themselves.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why being seen is important and valued is because it's actually kind of rare.
And I think when specifically surrounding needs, or it just becomes very apparent, you can have presence with somebody, and it's kind of like receiving a gift that you would never want. It doesn't have to be a gift, but it can be like, wow, that thing you told me or that thing that you did for me, you apparently don't see because that's not what I needed or I didn't wanted. Can be complicated, but yeah, being seen is it isn't just, well, the depth of seeing is really an important thing too. Seeing somebody at their surface level.
Yeah, it's hard.
Well, Rich,
That's
I
it.
mean,
That's all we
Rachel.
got. Just kidding. No.
Well, in this chapter, Second Kings 4, there's this grouping of narratives of varying degrees of, uh, I guess, perception of like, is this an important moment or are these important people?
I struggled with viewing them as related at all when I first read them.
Yeah.
Why are these together?
Yeah.
Well, and it's quite a bit of whiplash from First and Second Kings. Their focus is primarily on the kings or the prophets, and then all of a sudden now these central characters are these. It's a broken family. It's a affluent family, but with a quiet or unspoken need. It's a moment of some shortages of bread or somebody who makes a really bad stew, and so it's a kind of a whiplash from what's really been happening in the narrative. And so yeah, you go, what? Oh, is this some weird interlude? Why is this part of the story?
Right.
Something like we were talking a little bit about is like there, Scott Gorman and I, like just there could have been like different offers for all these stories because all these stories are span like a pretty large period of time. But it is interesting how we went from really focusing on kings and power and war, and even the story of Elijah and Elisha was not as quiet. I mean, not as big as the kings, but still, it was like important people, like Elijah being the prophet and being a part of so many stories. And then all of a sudden, we have these really zoomed in focus on individuals and families and the soup where it's like this poisonous soup. And what was it? We decided it was like 20 dinner rolls for 100 people instead of, because it says barley loaves and you're like, what does that mean? I could feed 100 people with 20 loaves of bread, but it's really like little dinner rolls, and it zooms in to these individual stories where everything felt like it was about power, which is interesting when you think about the week next week. It is such a huge discussion about power versus the servant, like somebody that doesn't have any power at all. So there's just it just zooms really far in. And I feel like it's such it's a moment where we really see what God is seeing and like what Yahweh is caring about, because these people, it shouldn't impact. I mean, it doesn't impact, like these stories don't impact a large group of people.
Right.
They're just like this family, maybe a larger community, but it doesn't impact everybody.
Well, for the most part, a lot of these stories are invisible to the majority of people. And, where the stuff in the previous chapters, people knew about it.
Yeah.
It was affecting their lives because it was based on such national monumental things, and then zooms way in and shows exactly how wide God's his view is. I mean, he's not just concerned with nations and kings. He's concerned with people who are otherwise physical.
Mm-hmm.
I think like infinity is a parallel perspective when you think about the scope of infinity, and then you think about in a room like we're in right now, the scale of every person has this gigantic story narrative, not of just their day, but their whole life experience. And so with the 25 people, 30 people that are in this room, that like it's an infinite scale of story. And most of our intellectual energy, our capacity is given to our own, and to look a little bit outside of our own narrative is this leap. It's beautiful, and so, but incredibly complex, because we just get this little snippets of people's life, their experience, their story, what's fueling them and what's confusing them and what's the challenge for them, and which comes to this narrative where the thing that we see is that while I can really struggle to have the capacity to understand other people's experience, apparently God is grabbing everybody's experience in the midst of even the king's narrative down to a widow who's has debt collectors coming with threats. So God has that scale of grabbing story, and that's a big difference between if I would think of God, you're just like me, and you only care about yourself, or you only see yourself, or you only. But God is in His infinity is grabbing onto all these narratives and is interacting with them all.
Yeah, I think like these stories are probably stories that were untold and happening during all of the other writings of kings, and so it's I wonder if the purpose of them, or part of the purpose, is to remind people that God's concern isn't only the kings, the nation, the relationships. God's concern is our everyday experience. Yeah. And here's a couple stories to show that God is at work in those stories.
Yeah. I love the narrative in Mark 1, which is a different gospel start. It's not little baby Jesus. It's right.
Mhm.
Jesus, the character. What is the character of the Messiah? Is how Mark 1 starts, and so there's baptism, there's the calling of disciples, but then right away he heals demon possessed and this man with leprosy, and again to the whole narrative of Mark, how does Jesus, how does the Messiah interact with people? The first thing that stands out is the people he interacts with are the most insignificant of all, those that were
Over and over again.
viewed as being nothing or outsiders or outcasts or unclean. That's the beginning of Mark to say that, hey, this is who God sees, and that's I think that is a beautiful repetitive narrative, not just of Jesus, but we see it right here in God's interaction.
I
with
think
these
some
people.
like comments like Greg put together a way for us to kind of look through some of the scripture and collaborate a little more. And you left some comments, and I think it's some of the things you talked about too when we were talking about it on Tuesday. But some of the things you said was sometimes capacity matters more than certainty, or like one of the first story was like her sons are going to be sold into slavery because she doesn't have any money and she's completely lacking in everything. And then Elisha tells her, and all she has is a little bit of oil. And so Elisha says, go to all your neighbors, go to everyone in your community, get as many jars as you can and fill them with oil and just keep filling until there's nothing left. And it's like she ran out of jars before she ran out of oil.
Loser.
And
She ran out of jars.
she ran out of jars. And you were
Dude,
like,
it's too
go
bad.
find more jars.
It's too bad.
Like, go, keep going. Why would you stop?
If Rich was here, this would be a great moment to say, "Hey, Tub Man,
Tub man.
Find another tub.
He does
nobody
like his
loves-
tub.
Roasters will fill every tub with coffee. Just
man.
more
keep,
tub.
just keep getting tubs.
But
Put them all in the van.
Put 'em
Fill
all.
them with
Yeah.
beans.
I do think that story is so interesting to me because I do think that I was writing earlier that the humanity's favorite response, I think, to God is this not enough. I'm not enough. I don't have enough. There
Yeah.
not
Mhm.
enough. And this story is literally the opposite of that. It's like what you have is enough. You just have to participate. Like,
Yeah.
what are you doing? You ran out of jars? How many times have I ran out of jars? Like God's doing things and I just don't participate.
Yeah.
Well,
done.
the prayer is, God, we need some oil. Not, hey, I got to find more jars. And that's the narrative of. It's part of all of these narratives. So that this lady has to be an active participant in getting jars, in being vulnerable and asking for jars. It's I think really quickly about you talk about insecurities, the moment when you're known to be impoverished and you're going to your neighbors and your friends and kind of friends and all this stuff and saying, hey, I need all of the containers you have. And the answer for sure, it's not a question. The answer for sure is, why? What are you doing? What are
Yeah.
you doing? And have you lost your mind? And then, the next narrative, this lady who Elisha says, hey, in God's favor, his blessing, you're going to have a son this next year.
She didn't even ask for it.
Yeah,
She
and
didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
It wasn't a topic.
Yeah.
He
And-
just did it.
And the center of that narrative is that God sees even what was not asked for.
Yeah.
It wasn't just
Mhm.
Elisha. That's Elisha didn't give the baby.
No,
No, he did not.
I'm pretty
And,
sure. That's a different.
but her response is, "Don't get my hopes up." That it's offensive even. And then the son grows, and all of a sudden he has a headache, probably an aneurysm, and dies. And but in this moment, it points to her relentless commitment, and she goes to Elijah the prophet and has this character trait of just hanging on, this persistence. Again, because what would seem the most natural, in a moment when you don't have any oil and you're asking for containers, you've kind of lost your mind. In a
Yeah.
moment when your son has died and you're saying, get to the prophet, that it's very easily a moment to just quit. And so her persistence, And the same in those last two stories with the soup. There was the persistence of at least making something.
Well, and they were persistent. I mean, he went out, there was no food, there was famine everywhere, and he went out to find gourds and feed everybody. Like he was trying really hard. And
There he
it
was in
just
Minnesota, just
happened
picking
to be-
every mushroom he found.
he was like, these are good. This is food. And then he was like, well, actually, it's all poisonous. And then Elijah, I don't know.
Put
I don't know
some
flour,
flour.
but that saved the day, apparently.
Yes, it was a little too thin.
Little too thin. He had to
Thicken
make a
it-
Picking
roux,
it up a little bit.
and suddenly the soup wasn't poison anymore.
Yeah, and in the last narrative, that there was the intentionality of they made something.
They had 20
just-
barley buns.
Barley loaf. you
Barley
know.
buns.
yeah.
I have to say they're dinner buns because otherwise
No,
I'm like, a
it's all
loaf
bad.
is too big, just little.
But in all of these narratives, the simple is like, God, if you see me, then just meet my need. I think that can be an easy prayer.
Mhm.
And these narratives go down to the insignificant. God, you see me, and
Mhm.
I'll participate. And I think that the equation isn't if God sees me, He's going to fix everything. But rather, God does see me. He does love me, and I'm invited to participate in even in the miraculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like, Greg, were you going to say something
No.
before? Okay. One of the verses that you were talking about was 2 Corinthians 12:9. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. And I see it, but I don't fully understand. Like part of me is like, that feels different. So like, why does that connect for you?
Why does it connect?
Yeah. Like I kind of see it, but I want to know how it
Well, I think
connects.
the people in these stories, they were either defined by their mistakes or their lack of something,
Mhm.
and I feel like that is the verse that God is saying to them in that
Yeah.
moment. Like, hey, dummy, I have enough.
Might not be dummy, but maybe.
How do
They
you talk to
always
me?
say it. He talks to you that way. Rich wrote it in one of the notes one
Yeah.
time. Hey, dum dum. I'm like,
all the time.
I can't say it. I'm like, no.
All the time. But I think that's like it's the in our weakness he is strong motif. It's like literally, it's not the moment we think it's about us or we haven't figured out is the moment we've missed it.
Yeah.
And so these stories are a constant reminder of like God's provision is much larger than our lack, much larger than our need. And so I do hear him say, hey, dummy, I got this. Like, why don't you stop stressing? And I think it goes back to what I said earlier about living in the moment to some degree. Like, I think sometimes God's telling me, stop worrying about what was been, stop worrying about what will be. Do what you know, what is right in front of you right now.
Yeah.
Do it like it matters, like you care, and trust that my provision will fill the gaps.
When
I
you
think a lot of these stories, this and and Mark 1 and stuff, they talk about people who are not only on the outskirts, but people who have been pushed to the outskirts, and kind of brings back Romans 8, it talks about no height, no depth, nothing can separate us from the love of God. We can push, we can either do it ourselves and run away as far from God, or we can be pushed as far away by a society, and it's still not far enough.
Yeah. And it continues from the insignificant nobodies to next week to the overt outsider.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's
the-
why you like it so much.
I'm an outsider.
No, you love the focus on inviting outside to participate.
It's true. Yeah.
What would be defined as the outsider?
Yeah. I do.
You love-
That's what the whole gospel is. That's all I see. Jesus just welcoming people that don't belong. I know there's more, but that's what
That's-
that's what I see.
It
And I
just
was
clicked for me, like, because you've said quite a few times you're so excited for that story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I haven't figured out why.
it's because these big powerful people think they know everything, and all of a sudden this
It's great. I love it. Rachel's wrap up.
Well, it's when we feel like we are too far out, or we've been pushed too far out, or we're just too messed up to even matter to God, He reaches down. He's like, you're not too far, and He also invites. We were talking about invites participation to say, it's not something I'm going to do to you.
Mhm.
I'm going to do with you.
With you. That's it.
That's where the real value is.
Yeah.
That we can participate in that, and we can participate in that work even when we are, your strength is many, when in my weakness, that's when your strength shines brightest. We can participate. Yeah, no,
Rachel's
yeah,
wrap
no,
up.
Rachel's wrap up.
Mm. Different person.
Yeah, give them.
Yeah. 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 Mm. Mhm.
Thanks for joining us, guys. We will go to Rachel's favorite story next week, so tune back in for that. See you Sunday, and have a great week. I didn't stop. Stop.